Hello and welcome to another episode of Anniversary Edition. Today it's Halloween, spooky, and we are going to be talking about Blair Witch Project, which is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year.
That's
Can
crazy.
you believe? I
20
know.
years, that's insane.
It's a long time,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Obviously we're going to spoil the film, as always, so do make sure you've seen it before you have a little listen. Watch it in the dark at night so that you get as much as is possible from this film.
Yes.
I'm Sophie and I'm here today with Tom.
Hello.
Hello. So this is a 1999 horror film or supernatural documentary.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
Probably is a little bit more, reflective of what you watch.
Yeah, I mean, it could fall under the... Well, I mean, technically it's what you would refer to as a found footage film.
It is.
And it's, I think, the first found footage film.
I think you might be right. Yeah. So it's a groundbreaking, genre-creating film. It's directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. I have written a little blurb, but I don't think it's my best, I'm not going to lie. So here we go. 3 filmmakers go missing after a documentary filming trip to the woods. Their footage is found 1 year later. And it's got like a ... vibe, but obviously you can't see that because it's not written. So I had to say ...
That works. It works.
It's fun. Yeah. So top line thoughts on this film. Tom, what do you think?
I think there's 2 sides to this film.
Okay.
One not very good.
Okay.
And one that is a work of genius.
Oh. Okay.
So, the way I feel about the Blair Witch, particularly watching it now. So I first saw this, I think I said last show, I first saw this not long after it came out. When I was at college, I came out in 1999, so I was around 1920. Perfect target audience, that kind of thing. Not massively into horror films, but you know. And I remember thinking it was alright at the time. Watching it now, it just did not work for me as a film.
Okay.
At all. For the main reasons of this, once you know the conceit that it's a found footage film, that kind of loses a bit of its shine when you know that they're actors and it's not genuine documentary footage.
Yep.
And if you kind of know what's going to happen and it's been spoofed and that kind of stuff, it kind of takes away from it because everything it's got going for it is completely undermined by this point. And then you start to notice all the stuff that's wrong with it as a film. Yeah. And I think that was fundamental. That was always going to be a case with this movie because of the way it was made. So, I won't get into this. You give us your top line thoughts. Then we'll talk about how the film was made. Yes. And then we'll get to the more interesting part afterwards.
So I think I said last week, I hadn't watched this film. I remember the hype of it. I remember kind of people saying it was really scary. And then it kind of disappeared off the radar in terms of like horror films, in my mind anyway. I've obviously watched this film. I do quite like a horror film. Yeah. Like I don't love like gory films. I like films that kind of freak me out a little bit. Yeah. I don't necessarily choose to watch them very often, but I don't mind them if they're done well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I was kind of bored from the second this started.
Right.
Because I knew, as you say, the conceit. I was not bought into the film thinking, oh, I'm watching footage of 3 teenagers that have gone missing, because it's not. It's a film. And I think I think that kind of lost me from like the minute it started. Having said that, there were a couple of times like in the middle of the film because I was expecting so much more to happen.
Yes.
And you know the scene right at the end where she's kind of right up close to the camera
Yeah.
and that's been spoofed
Yeah.
so many times. But I kind of thought that would happen like every night and that we'd get like a diary of her. Like I think you could make that film better
Oh, so much better.
and it would still be what it is.
Yeah.
But I just think you could make it a lot better. I mean, was I scared when I watched this? No, not really. I think they handle suspense relatively well.
I think the best bit is when they get into the house at the end. That's when it gets creepy.
That's the first time it gets creepy.
Yeah, and it's too late.
And you're not scared. It's like it's like 3 minutes before the end.
Yeah.
And also like the final shot. I was like, come on, where's the Blair Witch? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I was expecting like some creepy little head
Yeah.
to like look down the camera lens, and it just didn't happen.
So I think this all stems from a problem with the way they made the film.
Okay.
So, like, I think there's an interesting concept here in how they did it. And I think you can make this sort of thing work, but it relies on some very key things.
Okay.
So what they did was they prepped their actors with elements of the premise and the things and stuff, some of the stuff like that. They taught the camera guy. They gave him a crash course in how to operate a camera,
Okay.
which I think becomes a problem
Yeah. So do I.
because he's supposed to be the cameraman of a documentary, yet none of the footage is very good. And
No.
the key interview they film at the beginning is out of focus. That actually happened because he was operating the camera and didn't
Right.
understand how it worked fully.
Okay.
So they had to put in that bit in the car where they're talking about not being able to read the lens,
Oh yes. And
which
that
to a camera guy like me, like someone who understands that, goes, oh right, okay, he's got his meters and feet mixed up,
Yeah.
and he's got the focus wrong, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, fine, you've put that in there to cover that off, but that shouldn't have happened in the first place.
No. And as you say, the footage just isn't
No.
good enough.
And what the directors did was they prepped the actors and then sent them off to do things and film it themselves. So when they're in the forest, they would meet up at certain points, but the actors are on their own,
Okay.
left to their own devices.
So the director was not there
No, they would go and come back and
and meet them.
and instruct certain things. But obviously at that point they've got no idea what's been shot.
No.
And those actors have, as much as I love actors, have too much control over their performances, and more crucially, they've got too much control over the story.
Yeah. I think for me, that was like the biggest thing that makes so much sense now knowing that, because I didn't know that
Yeah.
when I was watching this. And I think so much of the footage of them in the forest, like in the daytime particularly as well, I'm like, the acting isn't good enough,
Yeah.
in my opinion, to carry the story. And I don't think they behave like filmmakers. I mean,
No.
I know they're students, you know, and they're supposed to be
Yeah.
young, and it's probably their first little big thing that they're doing. But it's kind of senseless, a lot of the stuff that we see. I'm like, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
I thought there'd be so much more. Like I said, I liked the suspense element in that you never really see anything.
Yeah. See, now, for me, I feel like the trouble with this is it's called the Blair Witch Project because of this thing called the Blair Witch. The crucial interview at the beginning with the crazy lady that goes into that, again, it's all out of focus, and, you know, it just doesn't work. And it's like, you should have had a camera operator do that with the director there. Like, you should have done those key moments at the beginning. Do those properly.
Yeah.
You can still create this conceit.
Yeah, and also you can have the camera footage quality disintegrate throughout the film because it ties into the fact that this
Getting tired
they're
and-
getting tired, they're getting stressed, they don't want to be filming because they're so over the project.
Yeah.
You know, and filming rubbish content like to wind up, the
Yeah.
girl, like Heather. I'm like, it would work,
Yeah,
but
it would. Yeah.
it doesn't start anywhere of quality.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I don't think the acting is that amazing, and
Mm,
maybe like better actors might have been able to pull this off more.
mm,
But for me, the real fundamental thing is that what they needed to do was set up something that the audience know. If something like this happens, that means the witch is there.
mm-hmm,
Like, do you know what I mean? If you think about it, they get weird noises in the night.
mm-hmm.
That could be
It
anything.
could be an animal,
Yeah,
most likely
most likely.
an animal.
Fine. They've got the weird little things hanging in the
Yeah.
trees. Fine. That's creepy.
Oh, do you know what? As you said that, I just got goosebumps. Maybe it did scare me.
So that's fine. But like none of that stuff is set up beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you need, like you don't, you hear they do the little story bits about the witch and stuff, but there's nothing really that kind of like, I don't know.
Well, if they'd have had one of those people, like you say at the beginning, interviewed, said something like, "Oh, people, the further you go into the forest, you see like like dolls
Yeah,
made
yeah.
of sticks, and that's where that's her part of the forest. You shouldn't
Yeah,
go in that
yeah,
bit."
yeah,
Even just something like a one-liner like that.
yeah. And then and then it's like in the back of a shot or whatever. Like so, it's
Yeah.
bring that. So it just felt like they don't set up the witch enough. They don't give the witch any purpose.
Yeah.
Like, or they don't. At least if they do, I don't remember it, and I don't feel like
No.
they ever do. Like it's like
No, I don't remember anything.
give the witch a reason to stalk them. Make it creepy, but you can still play with the concept of is it real or is it not. You can play
Yeah.
that, but you need to develop those signs with the audience to keep the audience guessing as to
Yeah.
whether it's real or not.
Well, and especially because the camera work is so shoddy and you're so all over the place,
Yeah.
you need some kind of consistency or goalposts, like you say, as an audience member, that you know that you need to be looking out for.
Yes, yeah. See, and it's that's the job of the director, making sure the audience sees what they're supposed to see. And yes, when you're making a documentary, you film hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. But the misconception there is that you're just filming anything. Whereas when you're making a documentary, you're filming very specific things. And sometimes you might be filming something a long time, waiting for something to happen. But there's always a purpose to why you're filming. You don't just turn the camera on and hope something happens in front of it. 'Cause that's not how it works.
Well, and also, even if they'd have set it up, as you say, as like, oh, so and so is doing the footage for the documentary, I want to keep our second camera on as much as we can, even if they're in the car. Heather
Yeah.
says that because she says, "Oh, I want to get behind the scenes. I want
Yeah.
to get the making of." So that's why we've got, I want
Yeah.
to make sure we've got a second camera on all the time.
Yeah.
And then you'd understand. And even if she said something like, "Oh, I can't remember which one of the boys is the camera operator, but whichever one it is, so and so, you're on like our A cam,
Yeah.
and whoever's free will be on the B cam." And then it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense as well as to why the footage is a bit shaky and
Yeah.
it's just not as good. And it's like, that's why they're filming, because they want to get the making of.
Yeah. I think they kind of gloss over it little bits like that. Again, the trouble with it is that you don't particularly like any of them.
No.
They're just not likable people.
No.
Like, she becomes very annoying very quickly.
Yeah.
The camera operator seems to enjoy annoying her.
Yeah.
And then the sound guy just gets fed up of everybody and then does really stupid things like kicking the map in a river or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's just
I mean, at that point,
no one would do that.
nobody would do that. I'm sorry, but anybody, even someone who's not scared or doesn't think anything's happening, they've had a couple of weird little things happen, as if anyone would kick a map in a river.
Yeah.
Like, they just wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, that was kind of the point that as well. So like I said, I wasn't really particularly engaged at the very beginning because I kind of knew what it was.
Yeah.
But, like I said, there were a few moments where I was like, okay, you're playing with suspense, and I'm waiting to see the money shot, I'm waiting to see the footage of the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like paying attention and engaged, but the second that happened, that you realise that he did it, that he chucked the map away, I completely disengaged with the characters. I was like, I don't care if any of you...
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I know that that none of them come back because, they've gone missing. But yeah, I was just like, oh, I don't really want any of you. If they'd have kind of really bonded together and had like a lot more of kind of camaraderie vibe when things started getting a bit weird, I would have been much more invested in like and concerned.
Yeah.
As every sort of moment grew, I'd be more and more concerned that they couldn't find
Yeah.
their way out of the forest. And
Yeah. And again, I think that always comes down to the fact they were left on their own, and then therefore those young actors decided that you have to create drama by screaming and shouting at each other, and
yeah,
and division makes drama, and that's not necessarily always the case.
no,
And and I guess that comes down to being how old they are, how
yeah,
experienced they are as actors, and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I get why I can kind of understand why they kind of made that conclusion that like, we are desperate, we are supposed to be panicking, we are supposed to be, getting really scared, and we're in the forest and everything's, really worrying, and so you would be yelling at people, but I'm like, but you wouldn't, because they're your friends,
yeah,
and you'd just be concerned. You'd be, I think it is Heather maybe when the boys are shouting or something, or maybe it's one of the boys. Someone says like, oh, we need to stop. This is too much. You like calm down, stop yelling. And I'm like, the thing is it carried on for so long for someone to randomly start saying that. Somebody would have said that. The person who was going to say, guys, I think you need to just calm down a minute, just take a breath.
yeah,
Let's just figure this out together. If we work together, we'll be fine.
yeah,
Someone would have said that before.
yeah.
And it's all a bit too fake.
Yeah, I mean that could have all worked if they'd planted the seed that the witch drives you crazy by turning you against yourself,
Yeah.
your friends, and all that kind of stuff. So there were so many things that I feel like were missed or not done, or
Yeah,
yeah,
it could have been
it's
teased out to make it a really
yeah,
strong film,
yeah.
actually.
So I think when you take away the conceit of it being genuine found footage, it just falls really flat now.
Yeah. But having said that, I do have to share. I think I said last week that I can't remember, maybe I didn't. My friend she's not from the UK, but she hadn't seen or heard of this film. And I showed her, I was like, oh, I need to watch this film for the podcast I do at work. And she was like, oh, okay. And I said, oh, it's a horror film because it's our Halloween episode. And she was like, oh, no, I don't like horror films. I get really scared. And I showed her the trailer and she was like, oh my God, it's a documentary. It's real.
Right.
And I was like, no, it's not. It's not real. But obviously the premise, that's the whole point. So I was like, I know that was obviously just the trailer, but I wonder if she'd have watched the film and I'd have not answered and said, oh, well, you have to watch the film. And not answered and watched her watch it.
Yeah.
I wonder if actually she would have thought, oh God, then that's really
Yeah,
scary.
I think that's when you would genuinely get it.
Yeah.
I think to enjoy this now, if you haven't seen it, it has to be the sort of film where it's late at night and you turn onto a channel and you see something that's just started and for some reason it grabs your attention and then an hour and a half later you've watched all of it and it's got to be something like that where you're just like, what is this? And you're trying to which is hard to do now with IMDb and your phone, and you can just look something up
and with so many spoofs of horror films as well. I mean, I don't know how you would ever avoid not seeing that in the UK. If you were a UK or American, I guess, kid growing up and you're kind of in either of our sort of in our general age bracket plus 7, 5, 10 years either way. I don't think anybody would have avoided seeing that.
No, not at all.
A spoof of some sort of the Blair Witch.
Absolutely.
And I mean, at the time, obviously, like there was so much hype about it. It was a really clever thing that they did. But like you say, I think, especially because documentaries are kind of becoming more and more popular now. I think people watch really good documentaries and have done for the last, again, 10 years.
Yeah.
I think people's expectations of documentaries has changed, and looking at that doesn't look like a documentary.
No. For me, I think the turning point with documentaries was around the time when we started to get things like Senna and The Imposter, and like those movies that just did something kind of different, and they really great stories.
Yeah,
but
completely.
I think what we're kind of slowly coming to is the reason this is such a big deal, and the reason it's like the genius side of it is not the filmmaking, it's the marketing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
that's why this film was successful.
This was the first film not the first film to have a website, but it was the first film to truly exploit the power of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So they created the Blair Witch Project website,
Mm-hmm.
which looked, to all intents and purposes, like it was created and run by those three filmmakers.
Yeah.
They started it up. I think they even created like a forum back then, you know, had people talking and stuff.
It rings a bell.
So they started all of that sort of stuff up, got it going. Then after a certain amount of time, it went quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Then a little bit later, they posted up that the filmmakers were missing.
Yeah.
And this was all like, and then they built up that community. Like, what's happened to these people? What's going on? And, you know, and then eventually releasing the movie, found footage, all that kind of stuff. Like, manipulating that, creating all of that.
Yeah.
And we talked about the budget last week. It was, what was it? Something like $60,000.
Something like that, yeah.
And then it's made, for every pound they spent, it's made nearly $11,000. Sorry, every dollar they spent, it's nearly $11,000 on return, which is still like the highest return of any movie ever. Like that, and that shows
that's
you
an extortionate amount of money.
It's insane, isn't it? For what is essentially not a great film, but the concept is sound, and I think it just it created a genre, this found footage genre.
I think for me that's the takeaway from this film, is that, and it was through a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't the film.
No.
It was. I mean, I'm not sure ethically that I agree with those choices, because I don't think that that's an appropriate, because of the subject matter.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't think that's appropriate, but I think, for all intents and purposes, like, all credit to the conception of that campaign, because, as you say, building a website, building a forum, it's as if these kids are actually researching this, because they made up the Blair Witch as well. Like, there's
It's
not like it's history. History. It's not like it's taken from like a you know, an
actual
story,
folklore tale or anything. I think it's a few bits and pieces collated together.
Exactly, it's completely made up. So it's completely fictionalized, and it's so clever what they've done with it. But like I said, fundamentally I don't think that it's what they did was okay.
No.
But it's incredible that they built a genre of a new genre, completely new, in film, because that's a impressive achievement.
I mean, I think that was one of the first times people realised just how powerful the internet was going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because I say, you know, they made a new genre of film, and they did, but the only reason they could do that was because they, as you say, they maximised the power of the internet, and they saw what it could do.
Yeah.
I mean, it completely sensationalised the film.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it
absolutely.
was everywhere.
Yeah. Do you know the weird, unexpected byproducts of this movie?
No.
The following year,
Yeah.
there were less animals shot during hunting season than any year prior, because there were so many young people. No, so many young people out there with cameras making their own versions and trying to like replicate the Blair Witch, that they actually scared animals off. And so hunters just like the
woods were just full of kids.
Yeah, they weren't finding animals to shoot as readily.
I thought you were going to be like, oh yeah, people didn't go into the woods because they were scared.
No, quite the opposite.
Literally, I mean it is incredible when you think of it like that. But when I watched this film as a standalone film, I would never watch this like at Halloween. As like part of a scary film night. I wouldn't even buy it.
No, watching it back, I was just like, oh god, this is so disappointing.
Yeah,
I remembered it being a lot better than it was, and you know, like I said, the takeaway has to be the genius behind the marketing.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
I just kept because I hadn't seen this film, and I knew. I think I spoke about this last week, because obviously, and I've talked about it before, like in Fight Club as well, when you know the twist, or you know the kind of the thing you're not supposed to know when you watch a film, it definitely does change your you have a different expectation of the film, but it changes your watching experience.
It does very much, yeah.
And I just think that even with that taken away, I still thought that this film would deliver.
Yes.
And it didn't.
I think there are movies that do revolve around without a plot twist, which makes it what it is. But if you have great acting and great characters that you engage with, and you have a great story at the core of it, you can get watchability out of that. And this completely falls short, and it just misses so many marks. And it's like, if there'd been a bit more planning and a bit more structure, and I get where they were coming from as directors, thinking, oh, the best way to do this is just let them go and do the thing, and it would be more real and stuff like that. It's like, you know what?
And it was, but it was a bit too real, because you had kids shouting at each other. Yeah,
and it's
basically.
like, you've got to control it more than that. And I think it highlights what a director does quite well, is that they've got to be, this is the thing, when you're directing actors in a scene, you've got to get them in the right moment, and when you're directing them, they're, quite often those actors are looking at that scene as it is right now, but you as a director have to make sure that you're controlling what they're doing in the context of the entire film, because you've got to make sure that they're not necessarily highlighting by doing something that's coming later, unless you want them to.
Exactly.
And you've got to kind of be a bit like, the actor's instinct might be to do something in a certain way, and you might have to tell them, actually, because this is going to happen, you can't do that way. And I know that's what feels natural, and you have to kind of, that's the fine line that a director has to tread with performance.
But if you can't, or you don't want to do it like that way, you have to have, as you say, the artistic eye to see the entire film. Because there's been a couple of films that I've seen in the past where I know they filmed in chronological order, which is really different for most modern filmmaking. And sometimes they don't, and I think this is more common in TV series as well, but like, they don't tell the actors what's going to happen to their character.
No.
Or they only tell the actual actor that something happens to. They don't tell other people because they don't want them to know.
No.
So you have to be artistically in control of those things. And everything you do is a choice.
Yeah.
And obviously this was their choice to do this way. And I do think it obviously worked at the time. But once you know what, as we've said, once you know, there is nothing left in this film. I don't think it hasn't got enough other layers to deliver.
No.
Like, one of my favourite kind of, it's a psychological thriller, I guess, is the original black and white, I think in the 60s maybe, version of The Haunting. And obviously I know that Netflix did The House on Haunted Hill, which is the story that's in the book that he's in the film of The Haunting, so they're like linked. But there's no blood and gore, there's no special effects, there's nothing. It's all done on suspense and superstition. And personal anxieties and insecurities of the characters. But the filming is so calm. And the acting is so controlled. And the thing that you think at the end is scary is explained like 3 scenes later, and is not scary at all. But you watch it and you are like terrified. I mean, I watched this when I was too little. I shouldn't have watched this, and it terrified me.
But the thing is that you can watch that again because of the way it draws you in, and
I can't. I'm too scared. But I have it on DVD. But I've never watched it.
Really?
Yeah, I can't watch it. It really does scare me. Like, and the thought of watching it, I'm like, oh, what if it's not actually that scary as well? And I've been going around for like the last 10 years saying this is the scariest film I've ever seen. But it's so, it kind of, this film kind of made me think of that, because I was like, nothing happens.
No.
So, and I love films like that. Like I said at the beginning of this session today, I was like, I love films where, they're more psychological and nothing actually happens. But it's all done on like teasing out your fears and personal anxieties. Like, in this, one of the guys, they don't believe, but one of the guys is kind of spooked from the beginning. He's a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to go. Like, can we just get home? Oh, we're not going to get any more footage. Are you done? Let's go.
Yeah.
And if they'd have played on that maybe a little bit more, like it's just you just need to believe a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's enough to put you on edge and change your behavior. But I just think, yeah, it just kind of falls a bit flat for me,
Yeah,
which
same
is a real
here.
shame. And I can't even. I'm trying to think like, oh, favorite scene, favorite character. I don't have a favorite character. I
No.
kind of dislike all of them.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I can. You can't really relate to any of them.
No.
Um,
Favorite scene, like you said, I mean,
the bit in the house is the best.
the bit in the house is
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
the most intense bit.
it's the climax of the film, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where but I was disappointed when I watched it. I was like, really, is that it?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
Because
But that's the only bit where I kind of feel like slightly on edge.
yeah, I
Do you know what
suppose.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I did kind of like some of the daytime scenes in. Is it when she finds the graveyard? And she's like, "Oh, it's up this hill, it's up this hill, it's up this hill," and it's just never up the hill.
Right.
But it's the first time that they find all the little like wicker, like
Right. Yeah.
twig
Yeah.
things. Um, that was like I was like, "Oh, okay," because also I think that's the turning point where the guy who has been a bit concerned gets even more on edge because
Yeah.
he's like,
Flips
"No,
out.
there's
Yeah.
something here." Like,
Yeah.
even if it is just people like mucking around, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I kind of like that, but it's not. It's not even a scene. It's like a moment.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so like throwaway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of a thumbs down from both of us, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, let's put it this way: it deserves its place in cinematic history because of what it did and what it achieved and how it works as a movie to watch. I think it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting thing to look at as someone who's interested in film from that point of view
Yeah,
of utilizing
definitely.
marketing, and that's such a big part of movie making now. It's they kind of they captured something in a bottle. Like we work in video creation and video production and stuff like that, and people love a viral video, and it's kind of like, well, you can't set out to make a viral video.
No.
You just have to make something that's really great
Yeah.
and hope that it spreads and like something happens with it, something magical happens with it.
Yeah.
So it's they kind of captured lightning in a bottle, I think, for a moment in time, and I think it would be very difficult for anyone to do that again.
Yeah, that's the thing because I think I was going to say sort of like, do you think it kind of still holds up? Or I think if you don't know and you think that you are watching found footage,
Yeah.
I think this is probably quite scary. Not like, oh, scary, scary, but I think it probably would
It would
play in
creep
your
you out,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah, and creep you out, as you say. But as anything more than that, I don't think it kind of holds up as a film.
No.
But I do think, as you say, anybody who's kind of into filmmaking or film marketing, like publicity, I think for the win, you absolutely have to watch this film.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
watch this
Yeah. Or
film.
you just go back and look about how it all worked and what they did.
How they put this all together. The release dates, the launch of the site,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
It was very clever. And it was what was even better. It was pre-social media, so it was to achieve what they achieved
Yeah.
using what was essentially just a website with a forum on it, I believe. I mean, that's
I mean, if
incredible.
this film didn't get made then, and no one had ever made anything like it,
Yeah.
and they made it now, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be a worldwide sensation, I think, because of social media.
I think it would either go one or two ways. It would either do that with social media, and it would be hugely powerful, or it would get called out immediately.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you're totally right.
It would either
It
do
would
one or
go
the
either
other.
way.
It would be like completely cut down.
I wouldn't like I said earlier, I wouldn't like that if I saw something like that had made me think
Yeah.
kids had gone missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if they did it it would have to be different.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It would have to, you couldn't play on emotions like that. It would have to be something more artificial
Yeah.
to make it kind of stand up. But I just think, like you say, with the power of social media, it would be so interesting to see how much more, for every
Yeah.
every dollar spent,
Yeah.
how much more would be
Yeah. Exactly.
recouped.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But I don't think there's anything else
No.
that we haven't covered that I'm like, like I said, I just am a bit disappointed
Yeah,
with
me
this
too.
film.
Yeah.
Tell you what you should watch though for Halloween,
Mm.
Hocus Pocus, because it's amazing.
I've only seen that once.
Once, oh my gosh!
I think I saw it on like VHS when it came out.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
Loads of my friends I think I was just of the right age though. Like lots of my friends now love this film.
My wife and I always watch Halloween.
Do you?
Yeah,
I
the
watched
first
Halloween
one.
again the other day.
Did you?
Yeah, it was really interesting watching it because obviously that was the first film that we did
Yeah,
a year ago today. And I watched it again, yeah, like last week with my friend.
Right. Because you weren't that you
No,
didn't really
I
like it the
wasn't.
first
And
time.
I had a couple of like
Let's see.
horror
This is
movies.
interesting. So now, so we've had a whole year
Yes,
for
we
you to
have.
get into this kind of like getting into reading movies more and getting. Did you get more out of it this time?
I
round?
did.
Really?
I didn't like it anymore,
Right.
but I got a lot more out of watching it.
Really?
Yeah, well, I just noticed so much more because we talked about it for like obviously, like an hour.
Yeah.
And we were kind of pulling bits apart and I was like, oh, I don't really remember that and I didn't notice that, and I did get a lot more out of it.
Oh, that's good.
But it was funny because like my friend and I, like the murder scenes, we were like, they're awful. And I mean, she's a massive horror fan. Like she likes watching scary movies. And I had about like 5. I was back at my parents and I had about 5 on DVD and I got them out and I was like, you pick because I've got them, I've seen them all. And she was like, oh, can we watch Halloween? And I was like, yeah, we can. And like I said, I enjoyed it more. I think I noticed more about the filming side of things.
Yeah.
An awful lot more than when I watched it the first time,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think I see it as a film that is part of kind of the horror genre history
Yes.
now. Whereas at the time, I was just like, oh, it's just a bit
Yeah.
like I've seen it all
It's
before.
a slasher movie. Yeah, exactly. When it was the proto, they
Exactly.
was the
It's
first,
like you've only seen it all before because
Halloween.
of this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but we were talking a lot like through it, and we were talking a lot when we were watching the film because I was like, oh, you just wouldn't do that, you just wouldn't behave like that in a horror film.
Yeah.
And that does annoy me in horror films.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'm just going to walk into this empty, cold, dark house because the door's open and I can't find my friend. It's like, well, you just wouldn't do that, would you? Though,
No.
like you'd turn the lights on, and it's not like they try and the lights are like not working. It's like they just flat out don't turn the light on, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they leave the door open, and you're like, they're going to come in behind you. So yeah, it was. It did make for an interesting watch.
Yeah.
I've got to say.
Oh, that's good. I know my wife and I usually watch it on Halloween every year, and then I think this year we'll probably watch that, and then we might follow it up with the latest one. That's supposed to follow on directly from that and ignoring all of the million sequels.
Right, because apparently, so we were talking about this, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, is she not in all of, like, I didn't think she was in any of the other films.
Oh,
but
she is,
apparently
yeah.
she is, and there was a twist, and I don't know if I'm going to say something.
Oh, don't say it because I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I don't think it was the newest one, because she
Oh,
hasn't
it's
seen
Halloween
it either.
2, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, so there's a thing, we talked about this on the first podcast we did a year ago, and it was that, I remember because I think Adam had seen it by that point, but I hadn't, and I said, there's something really significant that you find out in Halloween 2, and I think they completely ignore it for this new version, and I still don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The oh, I don't know how to say it without spoiling for anybody
I
that
mean,
hasn't
they're
seen
40-year-old movies.
I mean, sure. The family relation.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You
So-
think they ignore it?
So I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched it yet, and I've deliberately like not bothered to find out any of it. So
Okay.
I'm curious to see. So I think Halloween in brackets 2018 is a direct sequel to Halloween in brackets 1978,
There's
and
nothing in between.
with nothing in between. And I feel like they've ignored the fact that they're supposed to be brother and sister.
Interesting. But also, if that's the
I don't know.
case, it's like, how on earth would he ever know that?
I can't remember. They do explain stuff.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Yeah. There's whole
Fine.
loads. I mean,
Maybe
there's
I'm
like
going to have to go and watch all of them.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think for me, like Halloween 2 worked, and then jumping to Halloween H2O, that all kind of worked quite, worked all right.
Okay.
Halloween H2O was fine,
Yeah.
but it was, okay. 3 is like just, bad. Is it 3? 3, I think. And yeah, 4, 5, 6 are a bit,
Oh my God, there's so many. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
there's so many. And then there was other remakes, and so many
Wow.
Halloweens. So
Okay.
I think we might do we might do a Halloween double bill with Halloween.
Yeah, you
1978
should.
to 2018, I think.
And see what happens.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Interesting.
It just goes to show you it's been a year and I still haven't watched that movie.
Well, we have been a little bit busy.
Yeah, that's true.
On that note, actually, of busyness, we have absolutely loved doing these podcasts. They've been so much fun, and me particularly, because, I kind of came into this, I like film, but I was nowhere near, I wouldn't have ever called myself like a film buff. So I've had a massive learning curve. I've watched films I never thought I'd watch before. And it's been so much fun learning. I think I watch films in a different way now.
Yeah.
And that's only added to my experience of watching films. And I hope that obviously, this podcast has helped and encouraged others to do the same.
Yeah.
But regretfully, we're going to be taking a little pause.
Yeah.
It's not to say we'll never be back. We're not quite sure.
Yeah.
But we're focusing. We've got a few bigger projects on with work, and we need to
a few things to focus on outside of a podcast.
Yes.
But we figured, we've done a year. There's 53 podcasts because there's 2 Halloween episodes.
Yeah.
So that's plenty for people to listen to.
Exactly.
And maybe there'll be more in the future.
Yes.
We'll see.
So for now, thank you very much for listening. And if you haven't listened to all of our podcasts, feel free to go back and listen to episode 1 and
start again.
Download them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for listening, and maybe we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.